Good evening and welcome to the Glendale Town Board meeting for November 7th. Please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Please join me in prayer. This is a prayer for wise governance by Harvey Barnes. Since we just came off an election, I think it's a timely prayer. Heavenly Father, we give thanks for the democracy alive in our country and for the freedom to worship you. Help the elected government and all in positions of power and authority to govern wisely and for the common good of all. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Councilman Pittavani.
Here.
Councilman Aragosa.
Here.
Councilman Galluski.
Here.
Councilwoman Wozzbowski. Here. Supervisor Ketzley.
Here, and welcome all again, and let the record show we have a large contingency from Shelmont visiting us tonight, so thank you and welcome. We'll try to make this worth your while, so sit back and enjoy. We'll start with item number 4 in just a moment, but before that I do want to point out that we have an executive session planned to discuss a personnel matter after item 28, which is new business. So we will go to an executive session at that time. We do not anticipate coming out for any further public business, so you are welcome to stay if you like. We go back into that room and talk, but we will not come out probably. We don't anticipate any public business after that, so I wouldn't recommend you stay because there'll be nothing after the executive session. So with that, I'll start on my left with town council reports with Councilman Galluski.
Just one thing to report, Mr. Supervisor. As you're aware, and Councilwoman Wozzbowski, yesterday we celebrated the opening of the Lewis Trail over at Indian Meadows Park. Lewis Trail is a 0.38 acre trail, kind of a semicircle that connects to the East Glenville Fire Department. And it allows for all-terrain vehicle access back in Indian Meadows Park. Hopefully, certainly makes the park safer, good for emergencies. Hopefully we won't have any emergencies before we have to use it, but it is a very cool addition. And that was completed by Jared Ionetti, who's a Eagle Scout in the making. So very happy to be part of that.
Thank you. Councilwoman Wozzbowski.
I have a report.
Councilman Pittavani.
Nothing new.
Councilman Aragosa.
Just a couple things. Highway Department has started leaf pickup. They started in the northern part of town near the Burnt Hills border, and we'll be working south over the next few weeks. So keep in mind that the leaf pile should be off the street, and there should be no large sticks in the piles. One other thing, on Sunday is the Aerospace Museum is having their event to dance. It's being held at the Water's Edge Lighthouse. They're looking for support. Hopefully we can get out and go to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 5, which is the public hearing regarding the 2019 preliminary budget. I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishes to speak on the 2019 preliminary budget? This is your opportunity. Going once, going twice. Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Next is privilege of the floor. If anyone would like to speak to the town board regarding any issues before the town, we'll open privilege of the floor. Nobody has signed up for privilege of the floor, but if you're interested, please just raise your hand and we'll call you up and you can address the board on any issue before the town. Going once, going twice. Seeing none, privilege of the floor is now closed. Now move to supervisors' comments to the board, and fairly brief. I was going to mention as well, Councilman Galluski, the trail opening, the Lewis Trail, and the good work by the Eagle Scout candidate. One thing I did want to just add to the comments, I know Deputy Supervisor was there and yourself, the EMS piece of it is so very important, but one of the things that I think is really great is the link that trail is going to have into the much bigger pedestrian-friendly loop within the town. This adds another, although be it maybe 0.38 or 0.4, less than half a mile of trail into that. Eventually, it's going to help us connect the parks to the town center, to the neighborhoods, and we'll have that bigger walkability. And so what I thought was cool is this young man has put his little piece of that link into that much bigger pedestrian trail. That's kind of neat, I think. So congratulations to him, and thank him for all his hard work. Just a few things since seems like it's been a while since we met last. I know most of you were there, if not all of you, I can't remember now, but the Yates dinner was held last month. And we had an okay turnout, probably not as good as we would like, but we did net a couple of $1,000s for the cause, the Yates Mansion cause, which is going into the fund for that. It was a great dinner at Riverstone Manor, and I want to thank you all for attending, and hopefully we get a few more of those dinners, we could raise enough money to keep moving this project forward. Speaking of the Yates Mansion renovation, the demolition of the interior is just about complete. We have really, the turn back to the studs. Well, this is back to the bricks because there really are no studs. But we have opened up the house. You start to see the former grandeur of the house that was lost to all this multifamily built-in that they did. The next thing now is taking off the 1990s portion. We talked about this, the back portion. If you're in the backyard and you're looking at the house, there's actually a variety of additions over the past 100 or so years. There's a 1990s addition that was done on your left and in the center of the building. On your right, there's actually a wing that has two additions, appears to be one, but the roof line is different from what it was earlier. So there's a 1922 addition in the front, which has that bay window in the front. And then behind that, sometime post-1950, they removed that half of the house, that addition, and put a different addition on. The architect would like us to restore the roof line and restore that roof to the 1920s era. The problem is right now it's expensive for obviously to shore up the roof line and to rebuild the roof. So that demo is not going to take place yet. That will take place at a future date when we have more money raised, either through a grant or something else, to do that work. So the back portion of the demo is just going to be the left and the center piece right now. And so that's moving forward, and we're very excited that we're at the point where we're going to start putting plans together with the architect for restoration. So we're very excited. Speaking of history, the History Committee met a couple times actually since our last board meeting. The Pizza and Wing event, the second annual Pizza and Wing Fest, is set for January 31st. It's a Thursday, 5 to 7 at Mohawk Honda again. And we're inviting back the contest of the Pizza and Wing contest, so we're very excited about that. And the tree lighting, the second annual Glenville tree lighting, is set for Saturday, November 24th at 7 p.m. We have Christmas carols sung by the Cordeliers. We have Santa Claus visiting us. We have hot chocolate by Rotary. We have a variety of event things going on, so it's going to be a nice, we're looking at Hewitt's hopefully donating a tree again this year, and that will be just 2 weeks from now. Going fast.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Remember last year it was so cold?
Yeah,
It was like, eye water.
we got to get our wreaths up too as well. Speaking of the corner of Route 50 in Glen Ridge, National Grid project has actually begun. We're so very excited about it. You may notice, although I'm surprised how many people didn't notice, the trees behind the bank are gone. Yeah, so many people didn't notice it. The work began today, and we expect those poles to be gone within the next 2 to 4 weeks. So that's finally moving forward after 3 years of negotiation. The planning department and I have been meeting with the consultant on the Freeman's Bridge Road, the lower Freeman's Bridge Road redevelopment plan. We have a workshop planned for the owners on Freeman's Bridge Road lower. Again, this is Maple and below. That's going to be Wednesday the 14th at 4 o'clock here in this room. That is just before, a couple hours before our work session that night, so we figure we'll roll, if anyone can make it at 4, we'll roll into the work session, kind of after that. But it's going to be for the owners to kind of give them an idea of what we're thinking about and getting feedback from them on how we can redevelop Lower Freeman's Road, Freeman's Bridge Road. I attended the APF groundbreaking the other day. I just want to congratulate them. It was actually last week now, on their expanded clinic for cats. This allows them to handle more cats and handle them, giving cats. They found that, a lot of times putting cats into the cages before they were being neutered or spayed was a little stressful for them. This gives them, it's kind of like a cat condominium. They kind of have their own space now. They can hang out on different levels of different things, and they're happier. And so I want to congratulate them and thank them for all the work they're doing for our animals here across the county. I also had a chance to attend the Concert for Peace at Immaculate Conception Church, and that was in celebration for the 100th year of the armistice being signed. And so it was a wonderful concert put on by the Bird Hills Choir and a few other groups. And it was just a very nice concert that we were able to attend. And I want to congratulate them as well. A lot of anniversaries this year, 100 years with the armistice being signed, and Joseph Yates, this is interesting, in just a few days from now, on November 9th, will be, or would have been, 250 years old. There's a little fun fact for the day.
He was married 3 times, too.
That's right. That's right. I had an opportunity, I was invited in to meet with the residents at the Meadows of Glenwood last week to discuss the town budget. And after the budget, the conversation quickly turned to the Dutch Meadows development, proposed development. What I thought was interesting, despite what was represented to us in this room at a public hearing, most of the residents are supportive of the project. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So maybe they had a change of heart or something. But they like competition, and they are interested in seeing what's going to come forward. And they gave me a lot of ideas of they really want a Chinese takeout restaurant across the street. So, I don't know. We attended the other night, Councilman Galuski and I attended both the Park Planning Commission and the Code Review Committee, and we kind of tried to get to both of those. I think both of those are working very hard towards the Park Planning Commission giving us a really good understanding of what their priorities are for the next coming few years on park projects and maybe what some of that may cost. And the Code Review Committee looking at a variety of changes to the codes. Every time we meet, I think we have new codes that we're looking at, and I think that they're doing very, very good work. And that is really all I have, other than Veterans Day. We have a variety of events. I don't know if you've all had all these, but the county, it's actually Rotary in the county Veterans Park, and Thomas Corners there will do their 11 o'clock ceremony as they do every year on the 11th. And then I think Councilman Argos already mentioned the ESAM thing, I think is at 3:30 at the Lighthouse, if anyone's planning on attending that. That's all I have. Thank you. So back to the agenda, we're on to item number 8, a resolution approving a settlement with the owner of 2575 Johnson Road. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this is a tax certiorari settlement with Mr. Salini. He's the owner of the Ropes Course out in West Glenville. This is for the parcel at 2575 Johnson Road. This settlement covers the years 2017 and 2018. The original assessment amount was $482,000. The reduced amount is $373,000. I don't know if I said that first number right, $100,000 we're talking about. The reduction is $109,000. I did, for the question perhaps for Mike, or I can't remember, is this locked in for 3 years per law, or is it just? Okay.
It's by the new property tax law, section 7.
Yeah.
3-year freeze.
Okay. So this will be the assessment of that parcel for a period of 3 years.
But they can't freeze for 3 years either.
Right. That's it.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, approving the preliminary capital expense budgets for Water District 11 and others. Do I have a motion?
So
Do I
moved.
have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this resolution is passed would approve the preliminary capital expense budgets for Water District number 11 and extensions number 10 through 48 for the year 2019.
Thank you. And just for the record, we did hold a public hearing on this last meeting. I forget the date right now, but- Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 10, approving the preliminary capital expense budget for Sewer District 9 and an extension. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, as you stated, this resolution would approve the preliminary capital expense budgets for Sewer District 9 and extension 7 for 2019.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 11, approving the preliminary budget for another sewer district. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this resolution would approve the preliminary capital expense budget for Sewer District number 6 for the year 2019. If passed.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 12, approving another the preliminary capital expense budget for an all-Paw sewer district. Do I have a motion?
So
Do
moved.
I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this resolution, if passed, would approve preliminary capital expense budget for Sewer District number 1 in Altos for the year 2019.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 13, approving the preliminary capital expense budget for sewer district number 2. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, as stated, this would approve the preliminary capital expense budget for Sewer District 2 for the year 2019.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 14, adopting the 2019 preliminary budget as the 2019 final budget for the town of Glenville for the fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2019. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, if I may, I just wanted to extend my thanks to our comptroller, Mr. Cuthbert, who's worked tirelessly on this budget, who's also been very responsive to a number of questions that I've had. I'd also extend my thanks to you with respect to your responsiveness to my questions. This for me was a bit of a rabbit hole. It was my first experience with it, and with kind of each passing look through the budget, I would kind of see a new thing, and then I would lead me to another thing, and so on and so forth. But it was certainly an educational experience for me. At the end of the day, the tax rate increase of 2.34%, in my estimation, comes in at a little bit high. And we've discussed this a little bit, and I really think it comes down to a difference in philosophy, ultimately. I know that you've adopted a very strict philosophy of reducing the amount of fund balance that we use every year. That certainly has been effective and gotten us to a point of what I would call strong stability. But I think considering this year in particular, considering that the police contract added an additional expense to the budget, I think that that number is just a bit high. I would have liked to have seen that number go below the 2% mark. I do realize, I certainly understand the counter argument for it. Talk to Jason about it, talk to you about it. But I think insofar as when we look at what, when we were campaigning, one of the issues that was raised prominently was the amount of taxes people were paying. And I think ultimately, if we can do something to lower that number, that's what residents want. I think that's accomplishable by deviating from the self-imposed principle of kind of strict reliance and cutting how much the fund balance we use from year to year. I'll note that kind of as a result of that, maybe not as a direct result of that principle, but we've seen tax rate increases for the past 4 years in the budget. And that's, to me, is a bit of a trend that I'd like to see move in a different direction. So I wrestled with this decision. Quite honestly, I went back and forth over probably the past month. But all told, when looking at the tax rate, that led me to where I stand. My position is going to be to not support this budget.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Supervisor, I would just like to make a few comments with regard to this budget. I would also extend my thanks to the staff, to the budget, to the department heads, to Jason, to you, to the other board members for their willingness to go through this process with us. I can certainly respect Councilman Godlewski's point. By having been here for 9 years now, we come from a place that's a little bit different. I don't, certainly as a Republican who's pretty conservative fiscally, don't like to see tax increases at all. I also don't like to see us spending our savings. We inherited a budget in 2010 that had over $1 million worth of fund balance use. And that was highly irresponsible by previous administrations. And I think that our self-imposed reduction every year of using the fund balance, and this year I believe it was only about $20,000, because it's getting harder and harder to achieve that every year. I think that's put us in a position where we can make the major investments in personnel that we're making this year, the major investments in equipment that we're making this year, the major investments in the parks that we're making this year, all of the things that when we took office in 2010 that we said we wanted to do someday. And I can certainly respect Councilman Godlewski's position. I know he and I have had conversations about many different things, and I found him to be very willing to listen. Certainly respect his decision to not support the budget, but coming from a place of a little bit longer history, I think this is still a sound budget. All of our tax increases have been below the tax cap every single year, and I think this budget speaks for itself. We're doing a lot with not a lot, so that's where I stand.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, I too would like to thank you and the controller for all the work you did in the budget. And if somebody here on the board made a suggestion that they would like to lower the tax rate and looked at something other than our fund balance, I certainly would have looked at that and considered it, and may even have voted that way if it was something that it looked like we could cut back on. I'm a firm believer in not touching the fund balance and lowering that from year to year like we have done that. You don't want to spend your savings account on day-to-day operations. So I guess that is my take on this, that I would not want to see our fund balance touched.
Thank you, Councilman.
Well, let me just say that I appreciate the work that Jason and yourself have done, and I appreciate the work that Mike did to come to his decision, and I agree with Mike. I don't feel that we should raise people's taxes so that we can continue to save money, and that's just kind of been something that, I don't like the idea that we're going to increase people's taxes, and then next year they may be gone, and we have the savings, and we're saving. The way I see it, we're saving money that may not belong to us, or maybe we shouldn't be keeping. It's hard for me to articulate what I want to say, but it's, we've had this conversation, so you kind of understand where I am on that.
Thank you. You're second. Well, thank you. I appreciate all the comments here, in the 11th hour. I just want to review a few things, and I do respect my colleague's decision. Obviously a vote no is a vote no on a lot of things in this budget, but I just want to reiterate how we got to where we are here. We started this process, Jason and I, and the department heads, back in July, and I have gone out of my way to invite each of the board members into the process now for 3 or 4 months. I think you can attest to that as a comptroller. I've asked for input over and over again. I've gotten out one idea about where to cut in order to achieve this elusive goal that everybody supports. No one wants to raise taxes, but there's a difference now, folks, between governing and campaigning. And it's called responsibility. And that's how we got to where we got today, by making responsible choices to have one of the most sound structured budgets in this county. I don't want to raise taxes. Nobody wants to raise taxes. You want to vote no to that, that's an easy thing to vote no against. No question about it. When you vote no to this budget, you're voting no to adding public safety police officer to a much needed staff. You're voting no to those 3 gentlemen sitting in the audience that need more people in the highway department. You're voting no to the investments we're making in the parks. You want to do all these things, but you don't want to raise taxes. That is irresponsible. You come up with magic math, we'll figure it out. But if you don't want to support all the things we're doing in this town to make things better for our residents, to give the police force what they need, the tools they need, that's a no vote against these people. That's irresponsible. All for, you say fund balance, we're cutting by $20,000, which if we were to put all that back in, you're going to save the residents about $7 a year. So let's put this in perspective. For $7 a year, you say no to a new police officer, you say no to a new highway person, you say no to our parks investments. That's your choice. But there's a difference between campaigning and governing, and it is responsible decision-making that is good for this town and that puts us in a position of strong fiscal, as you admit yourself, Councilman. So, I'm just frustrated that this came at such a late hour, but we're on the resolution, so let's vote. Please call the roll.
Councilman Petlabani?
Yes.
Councilman Aragosa?
No.
Councilman Godzowski?
If I could just briefly respond to Supervisor Ketz's comments. I want to be very clear. We're not talking about a full dissolution of the fund balance into the budget to zero out the tax increase. From my perspective, I would like to see that number go below 2%. We're at 2.34%. I'd like to see that number fall back in line with what our past 6 or 7 year average of 1.47% was. Not voting against police officers, not voting against parks. I don't necessarily think that all those things are attached. I don't necessarily think that I'm not making a proposal to gut any of those specific line items. What we're saying is that by some more money management, this is achievable. And one of the things that stands in the way of that is the strict principle of every year we're using less fund balance. If you look at how much fund balance we used 3 years ago, that's a much higher number than what we're coming in at in this budget. And I think in a special year like we had, where we resolved the police contract, that this calls for deviating from that principle. And that's why I'm voting no.
Councilman Godzowski?
You voted
No.
I'm sorry. Councilman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Just to comment on that, I understand you're not making a proposal to gut the fund balance, but again, I repeat, the fund balance allocation that's being cut this year is $20,000. That equates to about $7. That still doesn't get you to where I think you want to be. But to be frank, and I'm sorry, but you say you're not making a proposal to gut the fund balance. You're not making a proposal at all. And so I think it's somewhat irresponsible to say you would like to see something happen and then have no ideas about making it happen. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry to be so blunt, but it's very frustrating that you brought no idea forward. You could say you're voting against the tax increase, but you're supporting the staff increases, but it doesn't get to work that way. You don't get to pick and choose what you want to do. You either support it or you don't support it. And I'm just disappointed that we're at this juncture. I vote yes for a very strong, very fiscally sound budget that is good for the people of this town. Resolution passes. Next, resolution 15, to schedule a public hearing for Wednesday, November 21st, regarding a zoning change for land that is currently zoned highway commercial, and to reduce that amount for riverfront recreational commercial. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
So I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this resolution would establish a public hearing for Wednesday, November 21st at 7 o'clock in connection with, as we stated, a proposed zoning change, zoning map amendment.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Yarborough?
Yes.
Councilman Gollosky?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 16, to schedule yet another public hearing for Wednesday, November 21st, regarding the imposition of liens on certain properties. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this would establish a public hearing for 7 o'clock p.m. on November 21st, 2018, in connection with two parcels that were found to be in violation of the code, Chapter 99, brush, grass, and weeds. In keeping with the code, we cut and removed brush, grass, and weeds from the premises at town expense, and this resolution and public hearing would start the process to attach that to the property owner's tax bill.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Yarborough?
Yes.
Councilman Gollosky?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 17, to schedule yet another public hearing for November 21st, regarding the imposition of a lien on a certain property. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this is in connection with a property located at 9 Van Buren Road, which was recently demolished due to being declared uninhabitable and unsafe by the Building and Codes Department. This resolution would establish, as you said, a public hearing to be held at 7 p.m. Wednesday, November 21st, 2018, to start the process of attaching a lien to that property for the expense of the demolition of that residence.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Yarborough?
Yes.
Councilman Gollosky?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 18, adopting the assessment roll for Water District 11 and certain extensions. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this would, if passed, would adopt the assessment roll for Water District number 11 in the town of Glenville, or in the assessment roll for extensions number 10 through 48 of the said Water District for the year 2019.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Yarborough?
Yes.
Councilman Gollosky?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 19, adopting assessment roll for Sewer District 9 and extension 7. Do I have a motion?
So
Do I
moved.
have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this resolution would adopt the assessment rolls for sewer districts 9 and extension number 7 in the town for the year 2019.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Yarborough?
Yes.
Councilman Gollosky?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 20, adopting assessment roll for Sewer District number 6. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, yet another resolution which would adopt the assessment roll for sewer district number 6 for the year 2019.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Yarborough?
Yes.
Councilman Gollosky?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 21, adopting assessment roll for an all-clause sewer district. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, yet another resolution to adopt the assessment roll for Alpha Sewer District number 1 in the town of Glenville for the year 2019.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Yarborough?
Yes.
Councilman Gollosky?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. We're working the overtime, Councilwoman.
I guess so.
Resolution 22, adopting the assessment roll for sewer district number 2. Do I have a motion?
So
Do
moved.
I have a second?
I'll second.
Change it up a little bit.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this resolution would adopt the assessment roll for sewer district number 2 for the year 2019, if passed.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the roll.
Councilman Catalani?
Yes.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godbrowski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 23, appointing Nicholas DeGraff to the position of laborer. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we got a move in a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, I love these resolutions. This resolution is in connection with the recent employee retirement and subsequent employee promotions within the Glenville Highway Department. There is a vacant labor position. This resolution, should it pass, would appoint Nicholas DeGraff of 66 Spring Road in Glenville, New York, to the position of laborer, effective November 13th, 2018, at a starting rate for such title of $15.10 per hour, and benefits as determined by the agreement between the town and the CSEA Highway Employees Unit.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the roll.
Councilman Catalani?
Yes.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godbrowski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Welcome, Nicholas. Are you in the room? I couldn't see behind Jason. Next, resolution 24, authorizing the promotion of certain highway department employees. Do I have a motion?
So
Do
moved.
I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
I like these too. These are fun. Mr. Supervisor, this resolution is in connection with retirement of Glenville Highway Department employees in June. It resulted in multiple instances of employees working out of class to provide the normal services of the department. This resolution should, if passed, would make the following provisional appointments within the Glenville Highway Department at the hourly pay and benefits for such titles as determined by the agreement between the town and the CSEA Highway Employees Unit. The promotions would be Daniel Van Hoosen, who is here in the room today, to the position of MEO Heavy, effective November 13th, 2018. Jonathan Sheriff, who was also in the room today, to the position of MEO Medium, effective November 13th, 2018. And Spencer Licarat to the position of MEO Light, effective November 13th, 2018. Who's not here? Is he, Spencer?
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the roll.
Councilman Catalani?
Yes.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godbrowski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Congratulations, Dan, Jonathan. I know it was a long time coming. We've talked a lot about it, and I think it was a product of our last meeting. So, congratulations.
Good job, guys. Thank you for all you do.
Yeah, both of you, and thank you, Jonathan, for all your work this Thursdays in the park. That was a nice day at the park this time, wasn't it? Yeah. Next, resolution 25, approving a one-year contract commencing January 1st, 2019, with the Village of Scotia to provide services into Fire District 4. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Just to start, obviously, this is a resolution that kind of has been a long time coming. Typically, we are in longer term. Since I've been supervisor, we've had longer term contracts with the village on this. Prior to that, there were annual contracts. But at this particular juncture, the village and the town just did not come to agreement on a longer term, the terms of a longer term agreement. So we felt, the mayor and I, the current mayor, felt that it was wise to get 1 year in place to give the incoming mayor time to come in, and we could start discussions fairly early with Mayor-elect Gifford. I did have an opportunity to call the mayor-elect today and congratulate him on his victory and talk about my desire to work with the village. He asked me, one of my favorite questions ever is, what's next? And I said, I think the first thing on our agenda ought to be to get together and talk about Fire District 4. I don't want to wait on that. I don't want to get into the situation, and he agreed. So we also talked and said we need to get together and share our agendas and see where the common points are and start working together. So it was a very good call, very, I think, positive working together. But this at least gets us through 2019 and gets us probably right back to the table, but at least it gives us some time to talk with the mayor-elect. Any questions or comments?
I just like to say I'm glad to see that we did get a contract done and an agreement here, and hopefully you and the new mayor can work this out and make extended long-term deal. So it's important that those areas are covered by the paid professionals.
Any other questions?
As liaison to the emergency services within the town, I also deal quite frequently with and spend much time with the fine firefighters down at Scotia Fire. I would just like to point out that they do provide excellent care to the residents in District 4. That's why I've always had no problem whatsoever supporting a contract such as this. They provide the highest level of pre-hospital care. They're all paramedics certified by New York State. They also go over and above. They are oftentimes out within the town providing care to residents outside of District 4, have done so without complaint, always ready to help, and I would thank them for their efforts and for their service, and I'm very pleased that this is here, and I'm looking forward to us establishing a longer-term contract next year.
Thank you. Just to add to the general sentiment, I too am happy to see that we have a contract in place, and certainly look forward to Supervisor Ketzley and Mayor-elect Giffords' ongoing conversations, and the building of a relationship. I think a strong relationship with the Village of Scotia is really essential to both of us going forward.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
One last thing, just want to make sure that we do note, because we always do, the contract term would be in the amount of $461,980.65 for the contract year 2019. This amount was included in the budget that was just passed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one last thing, that I think you covered everything, but up until 2 years ago, I've lived in the Village of Scotia all my life, so I have had the village fire department as protection, which I've always seen as a great asset. 2 years ago, I moved into District 4, so I am pleased to say that I still have Scotia Fire Department as our fire protection, so I'm very pleased to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, please record the vote.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Kessler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 26, approving the town board minutes for September 19th and October 17th. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, these minutes reflect what occurred at meetings that happened on September 19, 2018, October 17, 2018. They're distributed through our email by Ms. Niels and her staff, and I thank them for the work they did.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Kessler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 27, approving the town board minutes for October 3rd. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we got 2 seconds. Motion in 2 seconds. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Supervisor, same thing as the prior resolution. This is just for the meeting on October 3rd. So there'll be an extension on this resolution, so there were 2 different resolutions.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Pittavani?
I believe I had a previous commitment on October 3rd, and I wasn't at the meeting, so I have to abstain from that.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Kessler?
Yes, resolution passes. Before we go to our executive session, we will take up item 28, so we do not have to come back into session to have a public session. So I'll start on my left, Councilman Pittavani, my right, Councilman Pittavani, it's tricking you there, for any new business.
I have no new business.
Councilman Aragosa.
Not at this time.
Councilman Godlewski.
This is the part of the meeting where each student has to stand up and say one thing that they learned. So.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski.
I have
I do have just one quick thing I want to point out because it had a lot of discussion tonight, and it's regarding the fund balance and the budget. I just want to put this discussion in context. We do not take this fund balance situation lightly. In fact, the town board adopted a fund balance policy a few years back. That's the policy that guides the comptroller and this town board in making decisions on the use of the fund balance. The state comptroller recommends the fund balance not be more than 20%. Anything less than that could become a little bit problematic, 20% of your operating capital. Our policy puts us in a range between 15 and 25%. That's our governing policy, 15 and 25%. This policy, any unassigned fund balance right now for the A fund and the highway fund meet our fund balance policy currently. But but due to funding capital and debt reserves, our town general, our B fund, unassigned fund balance is slightly below our own policy, and we anticipate rectifying that by the end of the year, but we are not even at our level where the policy states we should be. On top of that, I just want to point out a few things, because it just seems a little disingenuous to me that we are talking about a tax increase. If you were to zero it out, somewhere between $17 and $18 a year impacting our town residents, and $1 a year our village resident. But put that in context of some of the things that's going on around the county. In 2019, the county, which is in this budget, the county will tax Glenville residents $398,000 just for election expenses. $398,000 just for election expenses, up from $349,000 in 2017. That is a 14% tax increase over 2 years from the county onto our town residents. I find it disingenuous that just over 2% gets so much acrimony by members of this board, but when the county passes 14% onto our residents, not a peep, not a concern, not a problem. That to me is a little disconcerting. In 2019, we expect Schenectady County to increase county taxes on Glenville residents by approximately $200,000, despite publicly touting that their budget has no tax increase. This increase is due to the fact that Glenville property values are rising faster than the county average, so our residents are going to be taxed more by the county than residents around the rest of the county. In addition, the county will also be raising taxes on Glenville residents by an additional $15,000 for new UCC expenses. Not a peep about that. Taken together, Glenville residents can expect to pay about $250,000 more in additional county taxes, despite the county receiving $2.6 million in casino revenue and all the sales tax growth. In total, our residents will pay over $17 million in Schenectady County taxes next year. It's a little disingenuous to be concerned about a 2%er when we have all this coming from other areas of government above us. I wanted to point that out. I wanted to put that in perspective because I think it's important, and I think as we go forward, we ought to be looking to work together on some of this, and I just wanted to point that out. So,
Mr. Supervisor.
I'm sorry. No, this is not a debate. No, you may not. You had your chance. I am on my new business.
You can respond after.
No, we're not doing that. I'm on my new business. You had your new business. We are now going into executive session. I'll take up a motion for executive session.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Or I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Can I ask what the basis of the executive session is?
Yes, it's a personnel matter. I did state that earlier.
Thank you. Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're in executive session. You don't anticipate coming back out, so you're free to stay if you like, but there's no business afterwards, so I wouldn't. If
You
anyone
need
needs to-
signatures?
Sign.